Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You're watching The Late Show on Newcastle Fast FM. Let's try again, lads. Hopefully this time it will work, inshallah, without any issues. So we are live on Newcastle Fast FM. This is one of the many shows that we do throughout Ramadan. The same every night, midnight. It is going to be a different show with different guests. And tonight we have some very important guests, two individuals who are doing some amazing work in their region with their organizations down in the Midlands. So let me welcome you both straight away. Brother Haroon Holmes from Nottingham Islam. How are you doing, bro?
Alhamdulillah, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, I'm good. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, good. And we also have Brother Waqas from Islamwise in Birmingham. Assalamu alaikum, Waqas.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah khair. How are you guys? Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair for having me on the show. It's nice to see you boys.
It's going to be a good show, inshallah. We've got quite a lot of things that we need to cover today. So let's get straight into it. Let me introduce the first guest, Haroon Holmes. Tell us a little bit about yourself, brother, and tell us about Nottingham and some of the work that you do in Nottingham.
Okay, so I am Haroon Abdul Rashid Holmes. I am the current chairman for the Nottingham Islam Information Point, a registered charity based in Nottingham. We've been serving the community well. We've been serving Allah's religion by giving da'wah, calling people back to pure monotheism since 1997. So alhamdulillah, tabarakallah, that's about 24 years, alhamdulillah. And now we've come to a very important stage in the project where we actually own our own center by the grace of Allah. So we actually own our own da'wah center. This is where most of our stock or Islamic literature is kept. This is where we can hold exhibitions where schools and scout groups can come and learn the basic 5 pillars of Islam, what is Hajj all about, what is Ramadan all about, and so forth. We also do a number of other activities in the center, such as feeding the homeless. We run a youth center on the youth clubs on the weekend. And we obviously run practically what a masjid tends to run, so such as the 5 daily salawat, Friday Jum'ah prayers, madrasa, Arabic classes, Quran classes for adults, and so forth. So our center is not just a community center, but it's also a masjid as well. And yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, my full-time job, my field is mental health. I'm a company director for our family care home for mental health. I actually work with my brother. My mother not long ago retired, so it's just me and my brother that are running the care home. We've got about 16 residents, and alhamdulillah, that's my day job, Monday to Friday. I get the weekends free. Alhamdulillah, I've got 4 beautiful children, lovely wife, and then obviously in and out of the dawah center, in and out of the project, trying to think of new initiatives and so forth. That's about it, really.
Alhamdulillah. Let me just drill down a little bit on some of the things you mentioned, really, because what you've just described there is essentially a model masjid, what a masjid should be like in terms
Absolutely.
of not only the ibadah in the 5 daily prayers and the Jum'ah and the classes, etc., but also positively contributing to society, actively giving da'wah to the community, non-Muslims, and inviting them to Islam, having programs for the youth. I think it's amazing work that you're doing, and it should be commended for sure.
Yes.
And really, it is something that it's a model center that people can really get a blueprint from, I guess, that they can use the same sort of system in their masajid.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are a few, obviously, masajid around the UK and even dotted around the world that are very similar to ours. Like, for example, yourselves. I mean, you know, the Islamic Diversity Centre has come a long way for a number of years now, and you've got your own centre. And then same with Waqas, with Islamwise, that's obviously attached attached to the Green Lane Masjid, which is a wonderful masjid we all love going to every year to the conferences and so forth. There's Luton Masjid Ghuraba, there's Al Muntada Al Islami with Discover Islam attached to that particular masjid as well. So alhamdulillah, so we're not just kind of alone or unique, but there are quite a few number of masajid dotted around the UK that do work like us.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. I think it's one of the things that we've had this discussion before in the past as well, about having that holistic dawah, making sure that we are doing things. We're not just talking the talk, but we're walking the walk as well. So we're showing what Islam is by action as well as by just speech, basically. And I think this is one of the things that I admire about the Nottingham Islam Centre is you do exactly that. You know, it's very open to the community. What are the non-Muslims generally like in Nottingham, though? How do they receive you? What's the impact you've had?
So Nottingham, so basically Nottingham has about just over 700,000 people living within Nottinghamshire, and between 35 to 40,000 of those people are Muslims. We have about 35 masajid around Nottinghamshire. And as you know, Nottingham is quite diverse, is quite multicultural, just like Birmingham, just like London, Manchester, and Bradford. It's obviously it attracts a lot of tourists because of the rich history Nottingham has to offer. It's got the two popular universities like the University of Nottingham and also the Trent University. So it does attract a lot of students. Nottingham does have a good nightlife as well. So a lot of people come into town and they like to party and stuff. So it's quite multicultural. People are down to earth. They're quite calm. It's not so much like London where it's all on the go, hustle and bustle, that kind of thing. But Nottingham is quite calm. I mean, a lot of people that have visited Nottingham do like the kind of atmosphere, how it's so subtle, how it's so calm. You've got the peaks just nearby in Derbyshire. If you ever want to go and take a trek up there, people tend to go to Skegness, Mablethorpe, if they want to go to the coast. So not so much Blackpool or Cornwall, but the local is obviously Skegness, Mablethorpe, Cleethorpes, that kind of thing. But alhamdulillah, the Midlands are quite good. Alhamdulillah.
It actually sounds very similar to Newcastle in some regard, actually, because over here with IDC we have, that holistic approach to dawah. We have very multicultural community here. Even in our masjid, for example, we have over 33 nationalities that pray in our masjid. We have the coast, obviously 15-minute drive around the coast. We've got a lot of greenery here. You've got a lot of you've got the city, and like you said, there's a very big nightlife here as well. So we've got a similar sort of setup, I guess, to yourselves. I suppose the people up here are generally very friendly and open to the dawah, which I'm assuming is similar to yourselves in Nottingham.
Yeah, it is quite similar. I mean, obviously, just like yourselves, I mean, you guys have probably had trouble with the EDL about going back about 7-8 years ago now, and then Britain First just a few years back. So we do get our fair share of far right hassle or problems. Nottingham had their very own EDL branch, Nottingham branch, and they were quite disruptive. We had to had a few face-offs in the past. They've come to the table. They've tried to topple the table. Britain First didn't do us any favors either. They came, they started filming, putting the video film in your face and that kind of thing. So yeah, you do get your fair share of far right. Now, obviously, you got this National Action. I think it's called National Action, which is
National Action. Yeah, they're proscribed as well now.
Yeah, that's why it's kind of banned now, and but we haven't had any trouble from them. But obviously, when we do the street dawah every Saturday, we're very vigilant, and we always like to work in not no less than threes. So we've got to have at least 3 brothers on the table just in case anything happens.
Yeah, we had a similar policy. In fact, we had National Action turn up at one of our dawah stalls. This is quite an interesting story, actually, because there was about 16 or 20 of them. Because we do our dawah stall literally in the city centre, a place called the Monument, and they were stood on one side, almost surrounding us, our stall, and they pulled up this big banner, if you can imagine, right? And on the banner, there's about 15, 16 of them, balaclavas, all the rest of it, yeah? And they were pulled up this banner all the way across Monument, and on there it had a big picture of Hitler, right? And it said, Hitler was right, immigrants out, yeah? Just imagine that. So we have a policy, we don't engage when they come and do things like that at first, unless of course they approach us, and then we have to obviously defend ourselves. But generally speaking, they don't cause us any problems. They know who we are, we know who they are. But they came and did this, what they call a silent protest. And the interesting thing was, we just carried on doing our dawah as normal. And the more interesting thing was, there was a local old lady, she came up to them and literally got in their faces, right? And started screaming at them, saying, "You're a disgrace. You're an absolute disgrace to your people, to your family, and all the rest of it." And she came out with this one-liner, which I thought was absolutely mint. She turned around, she said, "Your grandfathers fought against this man, and you're promoting this man. You should be ashamed of yourself." Anyway, she caused this big hullabaloo. And then all of a sudden, the shoppers who were passing by, they all stopped to see what the commotion was all about. And then they all started gathering around her. And then it was like a face-off. These are all non-Muslims. We're not even talking about the Muslims. Non-Muslims who were totally opposed to them. And there must have been about 50 of them, like, gathered around these 15 young men. And then a short while later, the police turned up, moved them on. And then they were all coming to our stall saying, "We want to apologize on behalf of them." And they would say, "Tell us what you're all about." And they took more Qur'ans that day and leaflets than any other Saturday. So they actually did the opposite of what they wanted to do, and brought more attention to our stall and learned more about Islam as a result of that. So the community here is very much anti-fascist in the general sense. And I don't know if you remember when Pegida first came to the UK from Dresden in Germany, the first city that they landed in was Newcastle back in 2013, right?
Okay.
I have no idea why they chose Newcastle. I don't know what their thinking was. It was their very first protest and rally. So they must have had about, 80 people, a hodgepodge of about 60, 70 people. From EDL, Britain First, just, Northeast Infidels, all of them came together to support this 2 or 3 Pegida guys, right? And then, I'm not joking you, there must have been about 3,000 minimum.
Yeah, anti-fascists.
Against this very small, minute group. And we're kicking off, and we had such an amazing opportunity to do dawah, because you have people from all backgrounds and all walks of life coming together. So, yes, we do have our fair share of the far right, but at the same time, I would probably say we have more anti-far right than we have far right.
Absolutely, that's right, exactly. And also we get our fair share of shahadas as well. So it is worth taking the trip to the dawah table, conveying that message to Islam. Even if you're just giving out leaflets and copies of Quran, you don't really need to say anything. Just give out some literature. For those brothers who are kind of scared or a bit nervous to come and join us, they should still come. They do see, they do meet a lot of wonderful people out there, people from all different walks of life, from different beliefs, and then you just have that conversation. Is there a God? Is there isn't there a God? What are the evidence, and so forth? So I think brothers should be encouraged to come to the dawah table. Yes, like I said, you do get the odd problem here and there, but believe me, when you see the shahadas coming to the table, people embracing Islam, it really does motivate you, that, and send you coming back the following week.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
absolutely.
even some people
Why would
don't
you
realize
say
that.
that? Sorry, Isa, go for it, bro.
Yeah, I think what the brother mentioned was a really good point. I think people don't realize that you can just come and hand out material. You don't have to speak to anyone. And that's a great way of basically just getting used to the dawah until it's like, like the swimming pool. Before you put your whole body under the water, you can just stand with your legs in it, and then you can go in. So yeah, definitely, I'd encourage people to just come and hand out material.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's very, very important that people don't get put off by these things. And usually their bark is a lot louder than their bite, basically, So when people do this sort of thing, and especially if you're in the city center, you have, a lot of people there. And like I said, these guys, they were very intimidating. They tried to be very intimidating. But in the end, it wasn't even us who had to face off with them, right? It was other people who did that. So I think it's very important. Why would you say, Haroon, why would you say it's so important for people to get involved in dawah in the first place? What are your views on it? Because you've done this for such a long time, yeah? So explain, why is it so important to be involved in dawah in the first place?
One of the verses that Allah says in the Quran is where is وَلْتَكُمْ مِنْكُمْ أُمَّةٌ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى الْخَيْرِ وَيَأْمُرُونَ بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَيَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ الْمُنْكَرِ وَأُولَئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ. This is where Allah is telling us that let there arise out of you a group of people inviting all that is good, enjoining all the good things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created on this earth, especially Tawheed, Islamic monotheism, and forbidding all those that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created in terms of evilness, and that's obviously shirk, and it is they who are successful. So Allah reminds us of this beautiful verse in the Quran that it is those who are calling the people back to khair, back to goodness, they are indeed the successful ones. So it's very important that every member of the ummah of Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam do get involved in da'wah, and da'wah comes in many sizes, in many different forms, obviously, that many people are aware of now. But street dawah is something that brothers should get more involved in. Obviously, we've seen a rise in street dawah for the past 20 odd years. A lot more brothers are getting engaged, but still, like for example, the statistics of Nottingham or the demographics of Nottingham, that there's between 35 to 40,000 Muslims in Nottingham, and there's only 5 to 10 brothers every week, every Saturday, giving out free literature to the general public. And it should be more than 5 to 10 brothers. It should be at least 50 to 60 brothers. It should be a lot more than that. So that's why it's very important that everybody gives da'wah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, Isa, from your perspective, we're going to come to Birmingham in a minute, because Birmingham is a bit of a melting pot anyway. There's going to be some interesting stuff. He's coming from the dawah stalls in Birmingham. But Isa, from your perspective, obviously you're in London. What is the situation in terms of dawah stalls and things like that? Is it the same sort of challenges that you face? And
Look, bro, I think London is really different to Newcastle. I think the more you go up north, the nicer the people get, and the more you come towards London, and the more busier people are, and the more richer people are, and the more things people have to do, the less time that they have for things like this. So in London, it's very hard for you to come across people that you'd come across in like Newcastle, Manchester, Middlesbrough, and places like that. So I think it's definitely much more harder. Like I see the conversations in Newcastle and up north and stuff, and they're completely different. So I'd say it's definitely more challenging, here. And yeah, you have many more of like racists or people challenging you or haters, because there's just so many more different people here. It's so multicultural here that you have all kinds of people.
I remember I was in Leicester Square once with the brothers there, and they were doing some exhibition, like open exhibition and dawah stalls. And honestly, you couldn't give anything free away. People did not even stop to have a simple conversation with you. You couldn't get someone's attention unless they really wanted to come. They weren't interested in having just a normal passing conversation. It was so hard giving dawah there, I have to say. And I think there's some truth in that. The further north you go, I mean, up here, for example, people just want to have a conversation with you. They don't mind. They'll stop, have a discussion. They might not agree with you, they'll have a bit of banter maybe, and then they move on, basically. Yeah. So I think I think there's some truth in that. The further north you go, the more friendlier people generally are.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, if I can just elaborate on that. I mean, down in London, I don't know if some of you guys can remember, but back in the days when our era were just starting out, they had a brother called Hamza Patterson. He was originally from Nottingham, and then he moved to London, Hamza Patterson. And him and Hamza Zortzis and a few other brothers, they came up with this initiative where they just filled lots of these goodie bags with Islamic literature and also some boxes of chocolates or some sweets or something like that. And they just kind of positioned themselves just outside the subways, the busy subways, and then all the people coming out from underground, they were just handing out these bags, and people were just taking them, curious what was inside, and obviously they loved the thought of free chocolates or free sweets or whatever was in these bags. But obviously these people went away, they took these bags with them, and then they must have read these, obviously the various Islamic literature that IERA was giving out that time. So I think initiatives like that needs to come on more, especially in bustling cities like London. I know, I mean, I can imagine Leicester Square. I mean, you have the Quran playing, and you got people passing by, probably going towards that cinema, doing other shopping and so forth. But you got to understand that people, I mean, we get it in Nottingham where people just want to shop. They just want to go for the bargains. They want to meet friends and so forth. It's only a handful that will stop and listen to what you have to say or what Islam has to offer the world. Some of them will have questions to ask, and they're quite curious. Why does Islam permit this? Why does Islam forbid that? But yeah, definitely places like London. Maybe just give them like a takeaway dawah bag or something like that, so that they can read it whilst they're commuting.
Let me bring Waqas into this conversation. Assalamu alaikum, Waqas. How you doing, bro? Yeah, how was the Birmingham scene for the dawah stall and stuff?
So it's quite mixed. Mashallah, we've got about 8 tables, regular tables, in our city centre, which is quite a lot, I think, for a city. And you'll notice they've all got their own unique style of giving dawah. So like what Haroon mentioned in regards to giving out the sweets and whatnot, I think this approach of giving dawah is something that's needed, and it breaks down more barriers than us playing the Quran and giving out free literature. So there is a table in city centre. They don't give any literature right until it's requested, and they give coffees and teas and hot chocolates and gloves in the winter and things like this. And mashallah tabarakallah, their success rate is huge. Not their success, not in the sense of how many shahadas they get, but the reaction they get from the people. So they've had a few cases where they've had like almost like big EDL type of guys turn up asking about the age of Aisha radiallahu anha, and the guys on the stall are like, tea or coffee? We'll answer your question, tea or coffee. I'll have a tea, please, mate. How many sugars? 2 sugars, please. And then the brother was telling me, he goes, the brother had gone off, the guy had gone off talking about this topic, and they just built up a relationship. And I think he goes to their store quite regularly now. On the other side, we've got guys who blast Quran, and they out there giving Qurans and literature. I think that had a place, but it's kind of dated, because what I've noticed with these sort of stalls are they normally have a certain type of person who comes to them. So if you're playing Qurans and ayahs of the translations talking about ayahs of burning in hellfire and things like this, you'll normally get people who come to those stalls who will argue quite a bit. But yeah, alhamdulillah, we have everything in between and on either side. But
you've got a big network there, I was saying, of Muslims who are involved in that. Yeah. I mean, one thing I will say though is I'm not a big fan of. I'll be honest. I'm not a big fan of just dishing out Qur'ans just willy-nilly for the sake of it. I'm not really a big fan of that personally. I would prefer to give, you've got the selected verses of the Qur'an in English only. You could give that as an introduction. But the actual Qur'an itself, we normally give, we're a bit more reserved like that. We give it to those who are genuinely going to read it, who have genuinely shown an interest after a conversation. And we say, okay, you know what? Why don't you read this and then come back to us? And for those, well, we have to make a judgment call here sometimes. But I'm not a fan of just giving them out like that, So I don't know what you brothers and Isa from IB, we've got Haroon from Nottingham Islam, we've got Waqas from Islam Wise and Birmingham. I don't know what your thoughts on it are. On this particular.
we actually was,
100%.
Isa, you start, bro.
yeah, sorry, we were actually doing a fundraiser for Qur'ans, like 2 days ago for IRA, right? Alhamdulillah, we managed to raise enough to print 10,000 Qur'ans, and we were telling the donors and the viewers, saying that, listen, guys, we don't just hand out these Qur'ans to everyone walking past, right? It doesn't work like that. Quran is like a book that you've printed, it's heavy, it costs more than like a leaflet and stuff. We only give it to people who have a good conversation with, they're interested. Of course, if someone comes and says, can I please have a copy of Quran? Of course, we give it to them, right? But when you're having dawah conversations, you're stopping people, you talk to me like, can I give you a copy of the Quran, please? And they're like, yeah, sure, why not? Because that conversation, okay, is solidifying. But definitely, and plus they finish so quickly as well. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but Qur'ans are like the fastest material to just finish off the table. So you can't really just hand them out that fast.
You might like that. What about you, Waqas? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of giving out the Quran unless somebody specifically asks for it and they're adamant. And even then, I like to encourage them to take some other literature, or maybe like a surah of the Quran, Surah Maryam if they're Christians and things like this. Unless you have that sort of relationship where they can come back and discuss ayahs in the Quran with you, I'm not a fan, because some of the ayahs in the translation are problematic on their own without any explanation. And a lot of the times, a lot of the times, unfortunately, we're not building up a rapport with the individual, so they come back to the stall. So if you're just giving them literature and they're gone, sometimes it's counterproductive. But it's different if you have the sort of stall where they're coming back and discussing with you any questions they have or any follow-ups. Then maybe, but even then, it's something I'd give that as the last resort. But there's a lot more literature that's far more beneficial, I think, to give them, inshallah.
Although I'll slightly disagree with you there, Waqas, because the vast majority of reverts that I know have all read the Quran first from cover to cover usually, and then they will accept Islam because of the Quran as a direct result of reading the Quran rather than other literature. But so I would probably disagree a little bit. What about Haroon? What do you say, bro? What are your thoughts from your experience?
I think both materials have its good points and its bad points. I think giving out the Quran to somebody who doesn't want it, obviously, you see, it's like you're forcing it down them. They're not going to really read it at that particular moment. They might pick it up later on from the bookshelf later on in life, or if they have any queries, any questions, they'll probably refer back to it. I mean, I don't know. It's like a double-edged sword. But what I can narrate to you is there's been a few incidences in the past where we had a couple of West Indian brothers, Jamaican brothers. You can see that they kind of yardis from back home, especially with their patois. Now these brothers, Abu Bakr and Musa. These brothers, the way they would advertise the the giving away of the Qur'ans to the general public was amazing because of their accent, because of their broken English or their patois accent. It really did sell the Qur'an to people. If you can imagine, these Jamaican brothers were saying, Qur'an, madam, Qur'an, come and read it, word of God. The way they talk, obviously I'm not, I can't do a good impersonation of somebody speaking patois, but if you just hear something like that, it does it does kind of encourage the people to come and take a copy of the Quran. Also, what I notice is that people tend to listen more attentively to, towards people, with a different accent. Especially in Nottingham, I don't know about other cities, but it's like, for example, if we have an Arab brother who's Tunisian or Libyan, and the way his accent, it does draw people in, especially if the brother knows how to use verses of the Quran in Arabic, and he's reciting it very nicely towards non-Muslims, explaining to them what the Quran is teaching us, and then obviously he translates it. It does have an effect on people. So this is coming from brothers with different kind of accents, dialects. I mean, I tend to find English folk, tend to listen to them more than just us native speakers or local, brothers.
That's interesting, actually, because we have some slightly different experiences with that as well. But one thing one thing I do encourage with all of our du'at up here is to definitely use Arabic and use the Quran, not Arabic, but using the Quranic Arabic. So when we recite verses, I definitely encourage using the Arabic verse and then explaining in English, because you never know, something from the Arabic, it's a shifa for the heart. So it might touch somebody, it might have an effect on them in that particular way. But I have noticed on a lot of dawah tables, people are shy to use the Quran in Arabic, and they only want to use the English. I think it has the opposite effect. People are intrigued by it when they hear it, and they want to find out, okay, what in your original language, what the scripture is saying, and you're translating it for us, and you're explaining what it means. I don't know what it's like in Leicester Square, Issa. Do they do the same thing? Do they use Arabic, not use Arabic? Or is it just all English?
I'm not too sure about what they do. I haven't been Leicester Square for a long time, but I have been. We've been doing an AVA chat campaign in IRA, which is a viral awakening, which is basically we're making use of this lockdown period. And alhamdulillah, we're running ads to non-Muslims and starting chats, because we have so many da'is around the world, alhamdulillah, who work for us full time, and they're locked down. So we thought, why not let's just get them engaged in dawah conversation. Alhamdulillah, we've had 30 shahadas so far. It's absolutely incredible. And one of the ads that I'm running is just verses from Quran playing with the Arabic, right, but with English subtitles. And I was just reading the comments the other day. Like, some of the comments you get from non-Muslims, they're amazing, man. It's full Arabic. So what they hear is just like the Arabic being recited by someone really like one of the really good reciters. And I'll read out one of the comments that I received, basically, from one of the women. And this bear in mind, some people are hearing this stuff for the first time in their lives. Yeah, like they've never heard the Quran in Arabic before, like in some random town in the US. Some old woman. Okay, let me read this out.
Okay, while you're looking for that, Waqas, share some of your experiences of people who are involved in dawah and using the Quran. Is it a normal thing down there to use the Arabic Quran, or do people shy away from it, or in Birmingham generally?
I think we do have a bit of a mix, and and normally you'll find the guys UK born, they normally just stick with the English, and you see brothers who are from the Tunisia, Morocco and whatnot, they'll use a bit more Arabic. Obviously it's a bit more natural for them, but again, I think it's case by case. You got to look at who you're speaking to, because I was out on one of the schools and I remember somebody used the word Allah, and it was enough to scare this person away. Oh, I don't want to know about Allah. I don't want. Yeah, honestly, forget this Allah like this. But whilst the conversation was about God, he was an older gentleman. He was like quite drawn in. But the moment the word Allah was used, he's like, I don't want to know about this Allah. Walked off. I can't remember what he was muttering. But I think sometimes it's a generational thing as well. Older people, they don't like things that they're not familiar with. A lot of younger people, they're drawn to the Quran. They're drawn, they'll ask us, can you play some Quran and things like this. So
That's
yeah,
interesting.
I think
so. There's a generational difference.
Definitely. But yeah, I think the guys who are born and bred in UK, they usually stick to translation, and the guys from abroad, that it's just natural for them to start using some Arabic.
Okay. And what about you, Haroon? What are your thoughts on this particular issue?
I think just like you, yeah, I think just like you stated that reciting a bit of Quran, especially the selected verses, and then translating them afterwards, I think that has a powerful effect upon people, non-Muslims. In my obviously giving dawah for nearly 2 decades now, alhamdulillah, since 2001. I think that is very, very powerful, and I think brothers need to learn more of the verses of the Quran and then translating that to non-Muslims. I just think it's really, really powerful, alhamdulillah.
I agree. I think one of my gripes with many of the du'at who get involved in dawah, I suppose, is they don't use enough Quran in their arguments. They don't use enough Quran in their conversations. And one of the proofs of that is you guys have done exhibitions as well, and you know what exhibitions are like. We have a little corner where you have a little TV screen, headphones, put the Quran on with that nice imagery, with the subtitles, and then we do like a little reaction, see how they felt after listening to it and watching that. And you always get similar comments every time. That was very soothing. That was very relaxing. It made me feel comfortable. It was, it was amazing. What was he saying? I was following with the subtitles, and you get these very positive comments back. They're just listening to the Quran on their headphones and reading the subtitles. So the fact that the Quran has that. I don't know how else to describe it, but the power to affect people, their emotions, their state of being, just by listening to it. So I think it's so powerful. Obviously, it's much better when you have a better voice, when you can recite it with a nice voice and stuff. But I still think that there's a place for the Quran to be used, or it's a very important aspect of our dawah that we're missing a trick on. That's my personal view. I think we are missing a trick a lot.
100%, like you said, AT, it's the Quran is a shifa, 100%. This is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed, and He chose to reveal it in Arabic. There's no doubt that it's a shifa, also, to heal people, to cure people. I mean, the Sahaba used to read, verses from the Quran on like non-Muslims to cure them from like bites and stuff, right? And there was one video that we made. It was called Atheist on a Plane, and we were making this video, really, really funny, interesting video. It was the ayah about when the boat rocks in the sea, and all of a sudden everyone starts crying out to God, even if you're an atheist. So we did a modern day interpretation with the plane, and I was discussing with some of the brothers. I was like, look, should I play in Arabic? Should I keep it in English? And one brother just said to me, he said, listen, bro, the Quran is just shifa, yeah? He was like, trust me. So I said, you know what? We're going to put in, and that video, bro, even now we see it 1 million views, 1.1 million views. Different, that's different people uploading it, yeah? Like when my sister will send it to me, it's on Instagram, and it just went viral, boy. And it hits people, because it's literally the revelation.
Yeah. Let the Quran speak for itself. Have you found that comment yet?
Yeah, I found it, yeah. I find it. So who's gonna put it up now, inshallah? Okay, so this lady, unfortunately, I don't understand the words to this song. However, the feeling was of truth, peace, and kindness. It was delightful. This is a woman who's heard it for the first time in her life.
Allah. Yeah, it's got power. Go for it.
I was going to say that, if you put the 3 recitations side by side, so you got somebody who's reciting Quran, somebody who's really good, like, for example, Ra'ad al-Qurdi, the latest one on the block, the latest brother who's Kurdish, he's got very nice recitation. He's reciting Quran in Arabic. Then next to that, you have a Greek Orthodox Christian reciting his passages from the Gospels in Greek, which I don't know if some of you guys have heard before, but you put that to the mix, and then next to that you put the, for example, the Ashkenazi Jews or the Orthodox Jews, the way they recite their scriptures. If you put all of these 3 together and you vote, it's a bit like the one of those
The X
contests where, yeah, the X Factor or whatever. Trust
Simon
me,
Cowell.
majority of the people, majority of the people will vote for the Quranic Arabic because it's just so melodious. It's so
Yeah.
beautiful the way they recite it compared to the Greek and the Jews.
I don't know
Yeah.
if you've seen that clip on YouTube. It's quite an old clip. There's somebody reciting the Quran to somebody from Japan, and in the same melody, he recites a poem in Arabic, and the Japanese guy picked the Quran recitation. So he goes, A and B, which one did you feel different? And he goes, A, which was the Quran. He goes, I felt inner peace, and it was something different. I can't describe it. But if I find it, I'll send it to you, inshallah.
Share it on the group. We can put it on the live feed now if you can find it. That'd be brilliant. I mean, there's some comments that have come through. If Sahil can put them on, by Muslim BB. No, there's one by Winks U. The brother Waqas is a good guy, mashallah. Met him a few times in Birmingham. Big up Waqas, bro.
Winks you. Winks you.
There's another question. There's a question here, which I'm going to give to Harun first. Yeah, how do you start a dawah conversation with a colleague at work?
So you have to put me on the spot. Okay. Right. Look, I mean, my expertise is care home. Okay. So I'm working in the care home. I'm talking to mentally ill resident service users most of the time. Then you have the odd community practice nurses coming in to give their fortnightly depots and stuff like that. My line of work, I wouldn't really just start talking about Islam to such a person, unless they was to obviously ask questions on the religion of Islam. But I think, I don't know. I mean, I've never really experienced this where you're talking to somebody at work about Islam. That's why I always like to hit the streets, go into the city centre, and just pull anybody up and start talking to them about Islam. But at my line of work, we just don't really talk about religion as much.
I mean, that's interesting because here in IDC, we have an elderly care program. Obviously, it's not the exact same as yours. You've got people with mental health issues, but we do come across some of the elderly in our elderly programs who do have that. But the vast majority of people, I suppose, what we do is we do more indirect dawah, first of all, to build up a relationship when we meet, on a regular basis. And then as they're more comfortable with us, we find that they generally ask us questions rather than us being so evangelical with that group of people when we're doing dawah. So they usually end up asking us questions, something they read in the newspaper or something they've seen on TV, or why do you guys wear that on your head, or why do you have that beard? And then it gives us an opportunity to open up a good conversation with them, starting from belief in God, Tawheed, and so on and so forth. So we do get to have good conversations, but we're not so evangelical about it, if that makes sense, when it comes to this particular group of people, the elderly. We rather lead by example, and then inevitably there's going to be conversations about Islam. There's no doubt about that. In fact, we got to such a point where we were speaking with, because we used to go and play pool with some of the elderly men in the community center, right? So it got to a point where one of them was actually quite racist towards Muslims. And then because we were coming so regularly, it removed a lot of his bigotry, actually, and he became very fond of Muslims. And then he started opening up, started asking questions, removed the ignorance. And then every Christmas, he would spend time with his family, and he would end up doing dawah for us, basically, to his family members who were very anti-Islam. And he would be defending Islam, saying, no, Muslims are not like that. Islam is like this. But just all from conversations he picked up from us when we go there, when we were going there regularly to sit with him. So I think there is opportunities there. You have to play by ear who you're speaking to. You have to be a good judge of character for sure when it comes to speaking to work colleagues. Well, Kas, what about you, bro? What is your answer to this question? How do you start a dawah conversation with a colleague at work, a non-Muslim colleague at work?
So normally what I'd do is it probably sounds a bit cheeky, but I'd normally do something in front of them in order to start a conversation. So maybe pray in front of them, or do wudu, or openly state that I'm fasting, just to see the sort of reaction I get from them, and then just take it from there, to be honest with you.
Okay, good. And Isa, what about you, bro? What are your thoughts on this question?
Can you repeat the question, please?
How do you start a dawah conversation with a non-Muslim colleague at work?
Bro, that's a tough one because I work in a dawah organization.
Okay, when you're working,
But I mean, look, an interesting one this time is that you could just tell them, oh, you know that I'm fasting. Have you ever tried intermittent fasting? I'm actually doing it like every single day, but it's part of my religion. You could bring it up like that. But I think with work colleagues, you have to be really careful because you don't want to come across. If you come across like desperate, or you come across the wrong way, then you can kind of make them think differently of you. So you need to find a good opening to basically start that conversation. That's what I think. A lot of them ask questions during Ramadan, to be honest, and that does help for you to initiate the conversation. Another good one is when you basically keep disappearing for Salah, or like you keep disappearing on Friday for Jummah, right? And you can make a point of it saying, I need to go, I'll see you in a bit. Yeah, I'm going to be back in a bit. And then they say, oh, where are you going? Yeah, or what's going on? And then you can say it's Salah. I did it at one of the courses I was in, Landmark. When I was going for Jummah and Salah and stuff, I would say, oh, I need to go, I have to go, I need to pray. And they'd be like, oh, what is that? I said, we pray 5 times a day. So I prefer when they kind of ask a question, but to bring it up yourself can be tough sometimes.
I mean, I remember there's an interesting example that I can give to answer that question. I remember when I was working for quite a large IT company, they used to fly me down to London on a Monday and then fly me back on a Friday from Newcastle to work on in their branch over there in Cranford, I think it was. And one of the things the first thing I did, I mean, I'm a bit direct like that anyway, but one of the first things I did when I landed, it was like, right, where's the nearest mosque? Or is there a prayer room here? And the manager was like, oh, okay. I didn't know you needed something like that. And I'm like, yep, I need to pray 5 times. I need to pray these times during the day. I need to be somewhere on Friday, and these are going to be my break times, and this is what I'm going to be doing. So she literally went through the yellow pages, bless her, yeah, looking for a mosque, the nearest mosque, and eventually she found a mosque which was literally 2 streets away, and it was a corner house converted into a mosque. And so she basically came back and found the nearest masjid. She said, yep, you can have your break times for these times, and so on and so forth. And then the conversation opened up. It wasn't just with her, but it was with others who were intrigued. Who is this guy just coming out making all these demands sort of thing and asking about X, Y, and Z? And then they were just asking, okay, so what is it you believe? What is it? What does it mean to be a Muslim? What does it mean to pray, and so on and so forth? That gives me an opportunity to open up about Tawheed as well. So I guess it depends on who you're with, and it depends on your personality as well, and how you're going to open up those conversations. But there's 3 different answers or 4 different answers we've given there how we can answer that question. Yeah. Anything else anyone wants to add to that particular question?
Yeah, I want to go back to what the brother Harun was saying about the care homes. It's definitely difficult to do dawah conversation with older people and vulnerable people, but sometimes you get these small opportunities. And I was hearing a story about one of the guys who was like a hospice or something, and he was like playing Quran, and then slowly everybody in the ward, they were saying, can you turn it up, don't stop it. And then the other person said, oh yeah, please turn it up, don't stop it. And it's like everyone wanted the Quran to be played, and that just goes back to show how it's like a shifa. And of course, like the brother Waqas mentioned, that yes, for some people it'll work opposite, they like run away. Maybe the shaitan's in them and it's like a ruqyah, right, chasing them away. But yeah, it definitely, for the majority, it's a shifa, definitely.
And when I did say that, the issue normally comes when we're blasting the Quran from our stall whilst people are shopping. I don't think that's the best way. Full whack right outside the shopping center, and you have a translation which I've heard a few times. I don't know if they keep playing the same ayahs, which I've advised them not to do. But when the translation comes into play, it's talking about hellfire. So I got to the guys, look, maybe it's better to have it a bit more subtle and pick certain ayahs that you can discuss with people when they come to the store. Definitely, the Quran is a shifa, and it's something we need to use more of. It's just sometimes when it's a bit brash and loud, it can have the opposite.
People, I guess. Yeah. I mean, there's another comment that's come on from Jamil Hussain. Recitation of Surah Taha made Islam into the heart of Umar ibn Khattab by Allah's permission, of course. So he heard the recitation, but I think the difference here is he understood what the recitation meant as well, which is one of the reasons maybe that's why it entered his heart. But there's no doubt that the Quran has an effect. There's another question here. I think this is a good question again by Muslim BB. What are your biggest gripes in the dawah from either Muslims or non-Muslims? From your experience, Haroon, you've been doing this a long time. What are your biggest gripes when it comes to the dawah, either from Muslims or non-Muslims?
So I assume gripes meaning challenges, problems, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like what are your pet peeves as well, I guess. What really annoys you? What do you see that it is, detrimental for the dawah as well?
Okay, yes, there is a few things. So obviously there's brothers who can get a bit too passionate. So, they're very eager to answer the questions to, whatever non-Muslims ask, and they end up asking so passionately that they get a bit careless, being a bit reckless, where they would just either instead of giving them the short answer, they'll just like go around the bush. They'll give such a long, extensive answer just to a small question. So that is one way people or some of the brothers kind of answer the questions. Others kind of answer the questions where they just don't have no knowledge on the subject, and then it's more of a defense mechanism where the brothers are just defending Islam as much as they can without really using much wisdom or hikmah. So that's when the few experienced brothers have to kind of come in and kind of take over the conversation. So that is that can be detrimental to the dawah, to any conversation or dialogue that's taking place. Try to remain calm, collective. If you don't know the answer, just simply say, I don't know, but I can go back and find out from my local imam or from a sheikh, or maybe someone else might know the answer, but I will get back to you if you just care to give me your email address or telephone number or something. That's one detrimental thing. Other things are where brothers are just kind of debating and arguing amongst themselves. So instead of doing something quite useful, pick up a handful of pamphlets, go out and distribute them, they're just hanging about, hanging behind the table, and they're kind of arguing amongst themselves, debating amongst themselves on fiqh issues, on halal wal haram, and voting and student loans and things like that. So that can be quite detrimental as well. So usually I just pick up a pack of pamphlets, and I just say, look, brothers, take this, let's go and distribute them.
I thought you were going to say you take a pack of pamphlets and slap them across.
No,
I do that when we go back to the centre behind closed doors.
No, not public. What about you, Waqas? What are your main gripes in the dawah, bro, from either Muslims or non-Muslims? We talked about something earlier that you're mentioning about the materials and stuff, but what are your main gripes, I guess, in terms of the dawah?
How long have you got? So, I'm not on the tables much, so somebody looking in, one of my biggest gripes is a lack of responsibility. You know, our dawah has almost become what makes us feel good. So it's almost how many Qur'ans we've given out, opposed to what's needed. So one of the things I mentioned, like literature, when you're at a table, I see you have two responsibilities. One, it's a process thing. One is the literature that you're distributing, is not normally written by yourselves. So I see a lot of the stalls, they'll give anything out. A lot, not all the stalls, but a lot of the times they're not even bothered to read the literature that they're giving, and they're not giving feedback to the people who are writing literature about the issues that they're facing. So what are the contemporary issues? What are people discussing? You know, we're giving literature from the 1980s and early 90s. We're still giving that sort of stuff out on our tables. And you're looking and you're thinking, look, what are the questions people are asking? You know, something that might come up is if there is a God, why does he allow bad things to happen? Have we got anything to give people that answers that question? If not, have we conveyed that message to whoever writes literature? Look, this is what we need to start doing. Or have we taken it upon ourselves to write something and continuously update what we're giving out? And then we've got the issue that comes after the dawah table. So, you know, we go for the shahada. And how I see dawah on dawah tables is PR for Muslims. You know, it's a great opportunity for us to create Abu Talib's and not Abu Lahab's. Yeah. So we got people who could come to us and we convey Islam and they leave thinking, alhamdulillah, these Muslims are not what I heard they are.
That's really deep. Bringing people closer to Islam, even if they don't take their shahada, but bringing them closer to us. Maybe changing a negative perception to a positive one, right? And it's interesting to say about materials, and that's one of the things that I'm actually really pleased about, that this are actually very high quality materials, generally speaking, and Islam-wise also have very good materials. Nottingham Islam, do you guys do you produce your own materials as well, or?
So we've only produced one pamphlet in English, which summarizes what the religion of Islam is, basically, and that's the only pamphlet that we're giving out, which is on our name. But most of our other pamphlets and booklets are in different languages, Eastern European languages, especially Polish, Romanian, Hungarian, Czechoslovakian, and so forth. That's one of the main areas that we tend to focus on. And I think a lot more dawah organizations around the world, you know, not just the UK, should also try to produce more and more literature in these different languages, especially the Eastern European languages, because we have so many Eastern Europeans in the UK now. You know, many of them like to.
Longer with Brexit, but at the moment we do, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. So many of the Eastern Europeans, they like to read anything, any literature in their mother's tongue, in their native language, rather than English, you see. So I think we should take advantage of that and give dawah to these different communities.
Well, actually, you guys have become the leaders in that, because most organizations come to you for these translations of Eastern European languages, certainly the Qur'ans. I mean, we get them regularly from you. So that's an amazing thing. What about you, Isa, bro? What's your biggest gripe in the dawah?
Okay, well, I have a few actually. But,
give me
but
one, bro.
the one is when brothers only give dawah to sisters. No, okay. The main one is when people overcomplicate the dawah. They really complicate it, or they get very technical. I cannot stand it when a guy when he goes, brother, before I need to give you an example, or let me bring you back, and I'm like, guys, please just keep it simple. You've gone off on so many tangents now. Ali Abdullah said that would you want somebody to leave the religion of Islam because of your language or how you said it? Yeah. And this is so important, bro, because I was watching an interesting video. There's this guy, I'm sure you guys might have seen him on Facebook, called Nas Daily. right? He makes a lot of videos. They
Yes.
go viral, yeah. And some of them are really good. And he made one on Trump, and he was saying about how Trump basically is so amazing. Actually, I mean, he hates Trump, but he was saying how his marketing and the way he communicates is so incredible that he won everyone over, especially the masses, because he said that he doesn't use the word employment; he uses the word jobs, so everyone understands what that means, right? He
Yeah.
doesn't use the word legislation. He says law. Yeah, simple, easy. And he was saying that, subhanAllah, because of that, all his fans, they just understand what he's saying. He's not some boring guy who overcomplicates stuff. Same with Islam, I like to keep it simple. We worship one God, yeah. And there was a prophet,
Yeah.
and the Quran was revealed to him to make it technical and stuff. I mean, even if the guy
That
is
is annoying.
intelligent,
I agree with that. That is annoying. Keep it simple. Keep
yeah,
it moving.
keep it
So,
simple, man. Honestly, it doesn't matter how
I agree.
intelligent or academic the person is, they will still appreciate it.
But you know what? I think there's something else that comes with that, and what I've noticed is there's too many egos in the dawah as well. There's too many. It's become, how do I win the argument? One-upmanship. Who? How do I look good in front of the cameras, right? And look how I beat this guy down and absolutely annihilated him on the camera and stuff like that. So I really, really don't like that, because that's linked to what you were saying. Just overcomplicating things unnecessarily.
Yeah,
Keep it
exactly,
simple.
bro.
Right? I mean, my biggest gripe, though, I'll be honest with you, my biggest gripe is in the dawah is, and I've been saying this so many times, people rush to get involved with the dawah, which is good, and we need that, but they're very, very slow and leave behind the new Muslim support, actually. The new Muslim support is probably, for me, it's the most important thing. When a person takes their shahada, you need to shut that stall down, you need to stop what you're doing, and you need to focus on that shahada, that new Muslim right now, and reinforce that they've made the right decision. Take them out for coffee, whatever, take them to the masjid, etc. We've got so many tools and resources for dawah, materials after materials, but we have very little when it comes to new Muslim support, and even less people who are committed and consistent to support new Muslims. So Harun was saying earlier, we've only got 5-10 people on a stall out of 30,000 people in our city, right? Same situation here. I'm a bit more selective in who I allow on the stall anyway, but for the very reasons that you mentioned, people overcomplicate things. People who are going to be too fiqhy and not focus on the dawah, not keep it simple. I don't want them on the stall anyway. They're not needed. We need people who are going to be focused, right? But at the same time, if you've got that many people involved in dawah, we've got even less people who are willing to be mentors for new Muslims, right? And the new Muslim support always gets left behind. This is one of my biggest gripes, for the dawah. The lack of new Muslim support or focus or attention given to new Muslim support. I suppose that would be my biggest gripe for the dawah.
The issue with this is, once the shahada is taken, we've got our high, we've got our fix, we go home. I had a shahada today, fantastic. There's no glory in looking after the new Muslim, unfortunately. And it's something that's linked to your intention. And this is what I say to a lot of the guys that want to set up dawah tables. I say, look, firstly, find out if there is somebody in your city who's giving dawah, and I suggest you go give dawah with them, because they need the support. And the second thing is, when I was talking about responsibility, the first thing is, you're giving literature, make sure you know what you're giving, make sure the resources that you're distributing and using have been checked by yourself. That's an amana upon you. And after you've done your job, make sure there's somebody else to continue. And this is the new Muslim support. And you just see a lot of the times the guys are not interested. I don't know why. They have this sort of glazed look over their face. They take the literature off me, and it's almost like they run. Because I'm getting shahadas from cities where, there's new Muslim support networks there, but these guys don't even want the contact from me. They'll pass the shahada over to me. I'll explain, look, I can't support them the way you can. You have a relationship, you've taken the shahada, you're in the city, you have that physical presence. But I just see this sort of thing where people are lackadaisical, it's astaghfirullah, I don't want to use this word, but it's almost like that new Muslim now is a burden. I want to pass him over to you. And I think, look, then don't take the Shahada. If you're not going to do it right, then don't take the Shahada. Do you know what I mean?
I
Why
don't
don't
know.
you give the
I
Shahada?
probably disagree with that bit, but I get your point. I mean, the simple fact of the matter is it's hard work, right? It's time consuming. It's hard work because you have to integrate that new Muslim eventually to the community, right? You have to take responsibility at the beginning, and people don't want that. You know, there's a lot of hype men out there, people who just want to get, you know, do that, the hype days as I call it. Yeah, come on the stall, do your thing, and then go, and not necessarily put the full commitment in the behind the scenes stuff, right? I'm sure you can appreciate this as well, Haroon. Running a center like we run our center, getting that commitment from the behind the scenes stuff is a lot more difficult than getting people just to turn up on a stall or an event or an exhibition.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, I think we'll be seeing more and more of those where there's only a selective few brothers who is too passionate about running the Dawah Center, even behind the scenes. And there's, you know, you're going to be bumping into these brothers who just want to come on a Saturday, blast the Dawah for a few hours, and then you don't see them until the following week. But bro, I think that's something that we all have to live with, unfortunately, in this day and age. You know, you'll always have a few brothers who are, you know, who will continue the dawah even behind the scenes, even go the extra mile with new Muslims. I mean, just elaborating on what Brother Waqas has said, I know Islam-wise is attached to Green Lane Masjid, and so it should be. You know, such a wonderful masjid like that. If dawah tables don't want to provide the aftercare for these new reverts, then they should signpost them to a particular masjid where there's relatively a young imam who they can relate with new Muslims, who can speak good English and who can teach them the Deen, especially the basics of the Deen, tahara, wudu, purification, salah, memorizing dua, and then obviously eventually teaching them alif ba ta tha. So I think you know, dawah tables should signpost reverts if they can't manage it themselves. Signpost them to a particular masjid with a young imam, not really somebody who's from back home, you know, who can speak broken English, but somebody who's British born who can relate with new Muslims.
I agree with that. I would 100% agree with that. I mean, let's we've got some more questions here, and some more comments. Ismail Hussein says, for Brother Waqas, do Birmingham masjids offer the same support for both Muslims, for born Muslims, the way they do with reverts? I mean, Green Lane Masjid, isn't it, basically?
Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of the masjids don't, and this is something that I've been banging on about for about a year now. You know, the biggest demographic, unfortunately, is born Muslims who don't practice, more so than revert Muslims and more so than born Muslims who are in the masjid. And a lot of our masajids need to start engaging with this demographic. They need to start making Islam more accessible, making it easier somehow, and putting some resources into this. Because, you know, we get excited when we hear somebody's left Islam, he's become an atheist, and a lot of the times they're not atheists, they just stopped practicing, they don't have any connection to the deen. And at this point, it's when we start making a lot of noise and so on. So let's help him out, let's go visit him. And I think, look, what happened the few years before this, why did they become disengaged with Islam and the masjid and the community? And what are we doing to fix this? And to be honest with you, there's very few masjids that talk about this or are thinking about it. It's something that we've been talking about and trying to engage some of the masjids. It's an uphill struggle because, you know, I think it's a generational thing as well. what was a contemporary issue 20 years ago, 15 years ago, things that maybe were on the forefront of our minds are not there for the youth now. And maybe you need somebody advising from that sort of age group, and we need to listen to them, and we need to stop putting things in place to make it easy for them to come to the masjid. And it doesn't have to be to learn Islam to start with. They just need to have that connection with the masjid, and then it grow, inshallah. But yeah, unfortunately, it is a demographic that's been overlooked.
Well, I would say definitely Green Lane Masjid is a
Alhamdulillah, of course.
Got an amazing amount of activities, an amazing amount of projects that Muslims can get involved in, and they have a big turnout, generally speaking, even for the normal salah. If I've gone there for Fajr or Dhuhr or Asr, and I've been going to Green Lane Masjid since 1997, right? So I've been going there since 1997. Back in the day when the entrance used to be at the front on the corner for the brothers, yeah. Back, yeah. And I have to say, it always impresses me the amount of work and activities that goes on in that masjid. And it genuinely is, I would consider it a model masjid for the world. You know, it does so many different aspects to it.
And the thing about GLM is it's connected to the community center, which is run properly. So we've got the scouts, budding believers, summer camps, retreats, and this is for born Muslims, youth activities and stuff like this. But and you know, we say Green Lane Masjid's at the forefront of the dawah. I believe it, and you know, like you said, it's a model masjid. But unfortunately, it's just one out of many. And you know, there are one or two other ones in Birmingham, mashallah, that are doing good work.
Yes.
But it's the minority. When you look at how many masjids we've got, and you look at the lack of engagement they have with the community, it's quite sad to see. It's heartbreaking. All those donations and resources, and not much is happening. But it's something we're working on and trying to engage with other masjids.
Yeah, change that situation. We've got a few other comments. We've got one comment from Hassan Tariq. I know a brother who was very involved in dawah for a long time, but now has moved away from dawah, but is still practicing and loves Islam. Do you have any advice to encourage him to get back into dawah? Let's start with you, Lisa.
Yeah, that's a tough one, to be honest. I think when people, when people start getting different hobbies and different, they sometimes get into different hobbies, different businesses, or something else that takes up their time, that almost goes away like it goes away like it was another hobby for you. Do you understand? So I think if it's kind of a, I see. I mean, you guys know this as well. Sometimes you'll see uncles like from Pakistan and stuff, right? They'll be giving that all their life. Like from when they were young to now, when they see someone on the bus, they'll be like, "Oh, I met this guy the other day in the hospital, and then I met this person at the petrol station." I think that needs to be a part of you. I think if we segment it to, I don't think it's right to segment it to like a dawah stall in the city center, right? Because the reality is not everyone can do that. No way. Okay.
Great.
But I think, P, you have to do it like as a part of your life. So if somebody, they go away from the dawah, I need to know, did they go away like from like street dawah stalls and stuff like that, and you want them to come back to that, or did they stop doing dawah completely in their life? If they did that, then that's obviously problematic, because it should be a part of you. You're sharing the message of Islam. So many people are interested in Islam all the time. Like wherever I go, if I'm on holiday with my family, or I'm on a work trip, or I'm on public transport, you have so many chances of people asking you questions and stuff. So I think you should always make a part of that. But I think if there's big projects and stuff that people leave, I think it's where your priorities are and it's what you're passionate about. I think sometimes when you get interested in some other hobby or business, you just leave it, to be honest. That's what I've experienced.
That's true. Brother Harun, what are your thoughts?
So, do you have any advice to encourage this particular person to come back into giving da'wah? Yes, definitely. Why don't the local brothers who are performing the street da'wah weekly, why don't they just come up with like a big quarterly da'wah Day, or even an Eastern European Dawah Day, or a Black History Month Dawah Day, something where it's in the season of the year, and you've got a very jazzy banner, like we've got a few for our Dawah tables, fasting for the future, which is obviously Ramadan related. But anyway, pulling out at least 3 dawah tables on that particular day, at least doing the dawah for at least 6 hours, from 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. And then you would call out the brothers who you don't see as much, and just say, look, Akhi, just make it on this particular Saturday in a few weeks' time. Just come for an hour or so, whatever, however long you can stay for, because sometimes brothers, just like Brother Isa was saying, that they do develop more and more commitments throughout life. So they get married, they have more children, they've got a different job, they need to work harder because they need to pay more rent or more mortgage, or what have you. And this unfortunately does happen. I mean, I've seen many brothers, from our dawah tables. They just come and go, and they are there in the background, and you don't see them for years on end. But I would suggest that you give them a call, give them a message, stay in touch with them, and tell them, look, why don't you come out with us in a couple of weeks' time? We're going to organize a big dawah day in the city centre. We're going to give out lots of literature. Just come for an hour or two, and at least try and make it for that, rather than just come every weekend.
That's some good advice, actually. That's some excellent advice. I think it's a good way to, so there's no, they don't feel the burden of committing themselves long term. I think that's brilliant. What about you, Waqas? What is your advice?
Sometimes it's worth considering that they need a break for whatever reason. So we get burnt out sometimes. Sometimes you see people take 3 months out, 6 months out, a year out, and they come back. So let's make dua for the brother, inshallah. He's just on a break and he comes back with a bit more energy. But what normally helps is if he's somebody who's experienced, I personally would sit with him and maybe ask his advice about certain questions or certain situations that you're involved in the dawah, and this might stoke some passion within him. You get that feeling back, I would have done this, I would have done that, could say this, you can do that. And you see sometimes people start seeing what they're missing, and they realize, actually, I'm needed more so than I thought. You never know. Sometimes if there's 5 of you, think there's 4 brothers there, I'm not needed really. They won't miss me that much. There's 4 brothers on the stall, but when those 4 brothers are relying on you and they show you, look, we need a bit of help, we need a bit of advice, it might make him think, actually, my expertise are needed, so to speak.
I think that's some very good ideas there, actually. I mean, there's a couple more comments, and we're gonna finish off with. There's one last question that I have before we go to these comments. Sorry, one last question that I have for you all, which is obviously for those of you who've been involved in the dawah for decades, right? Harun in particular, I've been around for since the 90s, seen the dawah change a lot. From the 90s to now, we've seen a lot of changes. You brothers have seen over the last decades many changes as well. Where do you see the dawah going? Like in terms of the future of the dawah, where do you see it going? How do you see it evolving? How do you see it changing and moving forward? What are your thoughts on? Because I've got a few ideas on what I think where the dawah is heading, right? Especially in the UK. What about you, brothers? Let's start with Harun. Where do you think the dawah is going moving forward and for the future?
I firmly believe, when they make these predictions that by 2050, the UK is going to be outnumbering the Christians with Muslims, and Europe will be more of a Muslim nation than a Christian nation. I think this is because I firmly believe, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I am one of those who do teach my children how to give dawah, how to converse with other people with different beliefs. I strengthen them with the different evidences of Islam, the proofs of God and His existence, and so forth. I think, I think the dawah is moving in a way where we're going to see more and more dawah tables in city centres. We're going to see more dawah training. We're going to see more of the younger generation running the masajid up and down the country. Like I mentioned earlier on, younger imams, younger committee members, board of trustees, and so forth, bringing people more into the masjid. Obviously, recently you've got the Myriad Foundation in Manchester pulling out this Ramadan initiative, where it's I've forgotten the name now, but it's where you invite non-Muslims to your local mosque
It's
to
Ramadan.
Yeah, that's right. Taste Ramadan. More and more of these initiatives need to come out. They need to be implemented, and I can see the younger generation taking part in these initiatives and hopefully taking the baton from a generation like ours, inshallah. And just like Brother Abdurrahim Green, he's always there in the background if ever we need somebody like that. Same with the other older brothers. These brothers, just like we will be one day, inshallah, where we will be in the background. Look, if you need us, give us a shout. We can provide backup, that kind of thing. But I can see the dawah growing, mashallah. In the Western countries, Australia, in America. Obviously, we've seen a lot happening in Australia and America and in parts of Europe, Germany, and obviously the UK. But that's where I see it, inshallah, is that
Inshallah.
we will meet that target. We will meet that prediction, bi'idhnillah, that by 2050, if not 2040, in 20 years' time, Islam will be the greatest religion in the West, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Waqar, what are your thoughts, bro?
I agree with a lot of what Harun said. I think we're at a sort of crossroads. I think one thing that I like about the dawah is the professionalism that we've brought in. It's needed. The organizational skills that we've taken from industry and we've started putting it into dawah. Allahumma barik. I think it's what's needed to push the dawah forward. But what I think is we need a lot more collaboration with different organizations. And it was this sort of thing where we talk about process of organizations, how they're going through things. You look at IERA providing dawah training. We've got resources coming from certain organizations, Islamwise, Nottingham Islamic Center. We're giving the resources. We've got literature, and Islamwise is working on like new Muslim mentoring program and stuff like this. Look, we've got all these organizations that provide free support on how to allow dawah teams and organizations more efficient and more professional. And I'm thinking over the next few years, when we see these organizations working a lot closer, the level of efficiency and the level of quality that will come out from this will be great, inshallah. And it should lead onto what Harun's prediction was, because it's the only way forward now. You know, these sort of ad hoc dawah that we see, where we used to see teams popping up, no coordination. I think those days are almost over now. We're moving on with some really good professional dawah, and in unison. That's what's needed, and I see us moving in that direction, inshallah.
Good. And Isa, what about you, bro?
Yeah, I think I definitely think so. I think I mean, alhamdulillah, having the chance to give dawah in some other countries as well, people you see people from different parts of the world. It's like their fitra opens once you tell them about Islam. And 100%, like Brother Harun said, that the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ is going to come true, that Islam will into every home, whether it's with us or without us, you know, and it's not going to leave a place, you know, it's going to reach where the night and day reaches, and it will not leave any place. So the message will get out there, inshallah, and definitely, you know, Islam is growing. You know, even though you see, you know, the numbers from the other religions, you know, when you actually ask them how much of the religion they actually believe and like what they do, it's not like Islam at all. No matter how unpracticing a Muslim is, his belief will always be strong, you know, mashallah, and he will always love the Prophet ﷺ, and he will always love the deen, right? I'm sure you guys have experienced this, right? You have, you know, maybe your cousins or your friends who are like messed up, but they will love the Prophet ﷺ, they will love the deen, love the Quran, you know. So I personally think, in terms of number, Islam is number one religion in the world. I think the other numbers and stuff, they definitely just stats basically. So inshallah, and it's growing at the same time. So definitely, inshallah, the hadith is true.
Yeah, I like everyone's points actually. The one thing I would probably add to that is, which I differ on slightly, I do think number one, we have professionalized our dawah. We've become more coordinated. We're working together with a lot more people and organizations. I definitely think that's true, and that has to happen. All right, for our dawah to be successful, it must. We have to link up, like we've just linked up tonight, right? We know each other from before tonight also. Ira in London, Islam-wise, Green Lane in Birmingham, Nottingham Islam, obviously Nottingham, yeah. IDC up here in Newcastle, the Northeast. But one thing I think that I would slightly differ on is the role of the dawah stall. I think the role of the dawah stall is going to diminish, not get better. You know, and I think that more dawah is going to be moving to online, on the online sphere. It's going to be more events and open days and, you know, center-based dawah rather than dawah stalls. And I wouldn't be surprised as well, maybe I'm a bit pessimistic here, but I wouldn't be surprised if legislation gets passed to stop dawah stalls at some point, right? Meaning that, you know, to be like an antisocial thing, or you know, being a nuisance to the public and so on and so forth. We saw in Manchester recently, a few years ago, they stopped it as under the Public Disorder Act. They stopped a dawah stall there. Of course, the guys weren't being the most best examples of how to do a dawah stall, but I don't know. Maybe I think there's going to be some changes in the future from that, but I think that that's not going to stop the dawah at all. The dawah is going to increase. The dawah, we're going to have more types of projects, and like I said, more holistic forms of dawah, direct and indirect forms of dawah. But I think that the dawah is getting stronger, more coordinated, and more professional. And I see that we have to, I think there's going to end up being some level of political aspect to the dawah as well. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but this is my views on it. You know, we're going to have to develop it a little bit still more to get it to where we want it to be. Yeah. So on that note, let's finish off with a few comments, and then we're going to wrap it up, inshallah. We've got a comment by Jamil Hussain. I think Muslim charities and dawah organizations need to link up more. Yeah, absolutely. To support each other in different areas, no doubt. Good to hear you brothers making links in different areas. Alhamdulillah. Maybe give dawah lessons for taxi drivers, other Muslims who work in the public sector who are shy to give dawah when they ask questions. Yeah, 100%. I mean, the easiest thing for taxi drivers is to have a bunch of leaflets in their car. Even though you're having a conversation, just leave a leaflet there. They can take it with them if not comfortable having conversations. If they're a bit more confident, have the conversation, you know. So, but they need to be trained up on that for sure. I think that's definitely a good idea. 100%. Yeah. Okay, we're going to wrap it up there. Any final comments? I'm going to go around the room, inshallah. So, Haroon, any final words before we wrap this up for today, inshallah?
Okay, so it was a pleasure conversing with my brothers around the UK once again, and I would definitely advise and encourage all those who have been listening to us in the middle of the night, get involved in da'wah, join your local da'wah team, your da'wah stall, and convey that message of Islam as we ought to be conveying. At the end of the day, it's all about the earning the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, earning his mercy, for Allah to have mercy upon us. Allah will only have mercy upon us when we show him, when we can prove to him that we are absolutely doing his work and the work of the Anbiya, the prophets of Allah. And that's all they did. They conveyed that message of Islam to their peoples. So we need to be doing the same. We have obviously taken that torch, we've taken the baton. We are the messengers after the death of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We are his followers. We need to be conveying that message of Islam to the people and to make that prophecy come true, where the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam said that Allah showed him that Islam will enter every land on this earth, showing him from the east to the west. So we need to be part of this honorable act of worship, conveying the message of Islam. That's my advice to all of you listeners out there. And assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Jazakallah khair. Beautiful advice. Waqas, any final words, bro, before we wrap this up today?
First and foremost, Jazakallah khair for having me on the show. It was a pleasure. Secondly, if anyone's listening and they have, any desire to get involved in dawah, dawah isn't standing at a stall. Dawah isn't working at a masjid. Dawah is, any project that you feel passionate about, get involved, inshallah. That's serving the ummah. Whatever it may be, whatever's close to your heart, get involved. And if you've got a skill that may help us in the background, utilize it. If you're good at IT, maybe help your local masjid, maybe help your local dawah center, your community center. If you're an accountant, we can use that sort of help. If you're a mentor, if you have a bit of time, anything you can give, anything you feel passionate about, get involved, inshallah. And if you can't do that, then I always say those who are giving dawah, make their lives easier. Remember them in your dua, donate money if you can, even a smile. And sometimes, it's not about ego, but, even a pat on somebody's shoulder or just some words of encouragement, it does help us, inshallah. But that's about it. Look, just get involved any way you see fit. It's not small. If it's sincere, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will accept it. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us all sincere in what we've done, and to accept all the work we've ever done and we're going to do, and to forgive us for any sins, inshallah ta'ala. And hopefully we're in gatherings in Jannah together. Jazakallah khair.
Good, yeah, brilliant advice. Isa, finally, bro, any final few words from you?
No, Barakallahu Jazakallah khair. I just say to everybody that, look, do as much dawah as you can, but also never forget that there's so many people and there's so many organizations that, working night and day, putting their blood, sweat, and tears, their free time, sacrificing their time with their families to do dawah. And Islamic Diversity Center, IDC in Newcastle, is one of them. And we have to support organizations like this, because number one, not only are you spreading the message of Islam, right, all over the world and in different parts of the world, but when you donate to something like this, the reward is so immense, especially in Ramadan, is that if just one person accepted Islam via your donation, right, every time that person prayed salah, every time they fasted in Ramadan, when they got married and they had kids and they did good deeds and they learned how to pray salah, you would share in that reward. So this is like an investment. Honestly, guys, these new investments come, our families talk to us about investments and money making opportunities, or there's some new cheap land in like Pakistan that you can buy now. These are the best investments. You give it, you forget about it, and you know what? It comes on the Day of Judgment, inshallah, you will see it. You will see how much, because even us, I think all four of us are from Pakistan, India, right?
Pakistan, yeah.
Yeah. So these were Muslim countries, right? Islam came to these places. So imagine the people who bought it. Now, how many Muslims are they responsible for? 200 million in India, yeah, 100 million Pakistan, 100 million Bangladesh, 400 million Muslims. So if they thought like us, oh, it's just one person, two person, then you'd always think like that. But if you look at the bigger picture, your donation today, this is like a small seed. it could grow so big. So support idc.com, PayPal them inshallah, and definitely support dawah organizations like this.
Jazakallah khair. I think that's important, yeah. So to reiterate, support idc.com, but also support your local dawah centers. Nottingham Islam, they need funds and support. Islam-wise, they need finances, funds, and support. Any dawah organization that you can promote or support them. Absolutely, 100%. We're obviously doing our fundraising in Ramadan for supportidc.com. Go to the website, see what we're doing, and donate to it to keep the work of the messengers alive, you know, in this country. So yeah, Jazakumullah khair. We're going to finish it there, inshallah. We're going to end the show there. I want to thank all of our guests for coming. We've had a UK-wide program tonight, so it's good to see that representation, alhamdulillah. We'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going international. We've got the brothers from Iman in Austria, the German-speaking da'wah. We've got Brother Sartaj coming on, Brother Amir, and I'm hoping. Did you guys see that revert, the MMA fighter who reverted from Austria, the famous MMA fighter?
Yeah.
I'm hoping he's going to make an appearance tomorrow night as well, inshallah. So it's a good show tomorrow. So make sure that you tune in. 100 million German speakers, guys. We're going to talk about the dawah to them. All right. So make sure you tune back in midnight tomorrow, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair, everybody. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.